Welcome to the Awake Experience. This is our Thursday night class, and this is our second week. And each week, the intention is to get together to support each other in our meditation practice. Awake is a mindful living community, and we just share tools at in-person retreats, when we're online, for social media, on our podcast, on the YouTube channel. We're all about just sharing mindful living tips. And tonight is no exception to that. We have Tamme Buckner from the Neurosculpting Institute on the call tonight. And it'll be the same format every week. We're going to have an hour session together. And it'll be a talk that's mindfulness related. And then a guided practice. And it'll be, it's up to the presenter each week what order they want to go in and how long we're going to meditate for. And just kind of keep it open. And I'm excited about learning more about neurosculpting. Tamme presented at the Awake Experience, one of our main retreats that happened in January, and she's speaking again at an upcoming one because neurosculpting is so interesting. And I won't get into it too much, but neurosculpting is started right here in Colorado. There's a center right in Denver where we can all go practice and learn more. And Tammy's one of their main instructors, so we're lucky to have her tonight. I'll turn it over to you, Tamme. Thanks for sharing tonight.
Oh, you're so welcome. And Eric, thank you for everything you're doing for this community and for the invite to share. I love being able to share. So yeah, my journey with neurosculpting began around 2009 when I met Lisa Wimberger, who started the Institute. And so I was just fascinated with the work, and it's improved my life on so many different levels, and I just feel so grateful to be able to share. But in essence, it's almost like brain training, and it can be considered emotional regulation. So it's a meditation technique, and it's a guided process. Erin and Shari, I don't know if were either one of you at the Awake Experience that I taught at?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. And I don't, Shari, I don't know if you don't want to be seen or talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just think I got the microphone on.
Oh, great.
So I was not at that, but I'm actually a neurosculpting facilitator, and I'm that Sherry.
Oh, well, it's so nice to see you. It just got your first name. So, then perfect. You know exactly.
I do. I'm excited to join you. So.
Oh, good. So neurosculpting, it's a meditation, it's a guided meditation process. So it's a very active type of meditation. There's so many beautiful types of meditations. I was drawn to this meditation because it is active, and it is a process where you get to go on a journey through the words that I speak. So it is in essence merging two worlds. It's merging the scientific world and merging the world of mindfulness, which for so long were very separate. And there wasn't really a space for science to enter into the experiential part of going off and being in a meditative state. So it's so powerful when you know what's going on in your brain, and then inviting that into a meditation practice. So in essence, it really is training our brains. And it's emotional regulation. There are so many ways in our modern day lives where we get stressed, and so it's a beautiful practice to be able to work with our brains, work with our neurobiology, have awareness of what's happening in our brain, and then invite that into a meditative space. So I brought my brain with me. I always bring my brain. We're going to talk about two main parts of the brain. So this is the front of my brain. Here's the back of my brain, and then the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And this fancy model that I've got breaks in half, and I'm going to show you all where we're at. So we're going to talk about two main parts tonight in the hour we're together. This is the center part. This is what's considered the limbic part of the brain, and this is the part of the brain that houses our fight, flight, or freeze response. Most of us have heard of that. Sometimes it's fight, flee, or freeze. So flight and flee sometimes get intermixed. But when we go into fight, flee, or freeze mode, we're triggered, we're stressed, we're amped up. There's a whole host of responses that happen in our body that involves adrenaline, cortisol. All of our stress responses go up. This is our dominant response, our dominant part of our brain, very primal part of our brain, and it's meant to save our lives. So it is an appropriate response that we want to have when we are in danger, when we're under threat. And to be honest, as a species, this is why we're all sitting here today, is because of this part of our brain. But in our modern day world, where we have, depending on where we live, very limited physical threat, sometimes this part of our brain can hijack us more than it helps us, because we don't find ourselves in the cliche walking down the dark alley being chased by someone as often as we do getting a text message and getting triggered, or sitting behind the wheel of a car and getting road rage, or sitting at a meeting and getting triggered, or sitting at a family dinner table during the holidays and getting triggered. So like I said, this is our primal response. We're born with a fully functioning limbic center, and it's our dominant response. Something else to be aware of is that we have something called the negativity bias, which means that we're 5 times more likely to perceive negative than positive. And again, biologically, this is designed to save our lives, because it makes way more sense to notice the bear in the woods, the cliff, the poison berries, and the other tribes that are pointing arrows at you wanting to kill you. It makes more sense to recognize all of that instead of the beautiful field of daisies. That has saved our lives. But again, right now in our modern day world, that this part of our brain hijacks us sometimes more often than serves a life saving possibility. So this is the one part of the brain. The second part of the brain we're going to talk about is called the prefrontal cortex, which is this part of our brain right here, this very, very front part. This is the part of the brain that's considered the new part of the brain. It's where all of our higher human capabilities are housed. So this is compassion, big picture thinking, empathy, all these grandiose ideas, which actually, precisely at the moment when we are triggered, we would love to have access to all these qualities, but these two parts of our brain share a unique relationship in that they're inversely related. So when one is getting all the resources, blood, glucose, oxygen, the other one, it's not completely shut off, but it's very quiet. And so the ideas of neurosculpting is to shift this process here and to down-regulate that limbic center and to bring on your prefrontal cortex, where we can have compassion and empathy and big picture thinking. So that's precisely what the neurosculpting process does, is help down regulate this process. And literally what we choose to think on, what we choose to focus on, is growing more gray matter in our brain. So you can see how when we're in a limbic state of mind, more often chronically, we're growing more gray matter around here. And you know, I was doing some research for a white paper that I had to write this year, and I found a great study that put into words what the fight, flight, or freeze response can feel like. So I'm just going to go through some of these descriptions, and then I'll see if you guys experience these at all. So the fight response. Oh, is someone asking something? Oh, gray matter. I'll focus on, yes, I'll talk about that. Gray matter is, our brain is made up of a bazillion neurons, and neurons are these cells, and all of these cells have dendritic branches that grow off of these cells. And when cells are lit up and are activated, it wants to talk to another cell. And so all of these neuron networks light up when we have experiences, when we're learning new things, and also when we're triggered. There was a neuroscientist by the name of Hebb who coined the phrase neurons that fire together, wire together. So when you have a bunch of neurons excited, and then they're creating a neurological map, when all these neuron cells and maps are lit up, they're creating a neurological map. That can be a memory. It can be an event. So that's what I mean by gray matter. What we choose to focus on is creating more lit up maps, more neurological matter. So thank you for that question. So let's go back. Fight. What fight can feel like for us and how it can be expressed. would be crying, maybe hands in a fist, a desire to punch something. It can be a fixed, tight jaw. It can be grinding teeth. It can be a snarl. You can have some fire in your eyes or a glare. There could be a desire to stomp or kick or stomp your feet. There could be feelings of anger and rage. This could even be homicidal thoughts or suicidal thoughts. You can have a knot in your stomach. It can be nausea. You can have a burning stomach even. And then there are metaphors that come with it are like bombs or volcanoes erupting. These are all feelings of what fight is like. Now, what flight could feel like is restless legs. I don't know if any of you have restless leg syndrome when you're fidgety, you can't sit still. There could also be numbness in your legs. It could be anxiety, shallow breathing, big eyes, big darting eyes. It could be restlessness, like we mentioned, but also a feeling of being trapped and just a tenseness with that. And it could also be a sense of just that you want to run away, that you want to move to the next activity. And excessive exercise. I don't know if you've ever been triggered and you're like, you're running or you're exercising and you need to go quicker and quicker. So those are all responses to flight. And then responses that would be connected to the freeze are when you feel stuck. There could be a part of your body that feels stuck. You could feel cold. You could feel frozen. You could feel numb. You might have pale skin. You could even pass out. Lisa has a fascinating story about when she was young and was struck by lightning, and it created a debilitating condition where when she would get triggered, she would go into this freeze response and she would flatline, and it was debilitating for her. So her whole process of healing is what birthed all of this neurosculpting. So I have my books here. I'll just show you these. If you're interested in her story, there's these two. She goes into them in both New Beliefs, New Brain, and Neurosculpting. So she has a really, like I said, fascinating story around the freeze response. So there could be a sense of stiffness, of heaviness. Could be holding your breath, restricted breathing, a sense of, bless you, a sense of dread or heart pounding. It could be decreased heart rate, like I mentioned, Lisa would flatlined a few times. So those are all feelings of freeze. So when I go through that list, how many times a day would you say that you feel one of these, any of these, multiple? I mean, they could be all happening simultaneously, but can you count on one hand, two hands, maybe more, how many times we go into these responses?
Yeah, I can for sure. Yeah, I get the tight jaw a lot and the belly tightness, I think.
Yeah. Well, all of those combined is when we go into these spaces and we get chronically triggered, is where this comes in, the disharmony. And I like to break up the word disease into two, so the dis and the ease, because all of these symptoms are preparing your brain and your body to either fight, to run, or to freeze to save your life. So what's at a disadvantage is when we go into all of these responses and we're triggered for no reason to save our lives, but like I said, we're triggered by the text message, we're triggered by the meeting, we're triggered by the road rage. When we get triggered like that and we're in a chronic state of stress that way, it starts using us. So when we don't dissipate this energy, when we don't use all of the adrenaline and the cortisol and everything, this whole process that begins to happen when we're stressed, it begins to use us. And so the whole idea of neurosculpting is to help down-regulate this limbic center, bring on the prefrontal cortex, and live more in that state of mind versus in a triggered state of mind. There's the idea that there's really only one disease, and that's inflammation. And all the other diseases stem from inflammation in our body. So inflammation comes when we have this adrenaline, this cortisol, but yet we don't use it. So if we're not using it, it is actually using us. There's the metaphor of having issues in our tissues. So when we don't process through something and we're storing all of this, it can get expressed in our body through illness, through pain, through all kinds of different things. So the idea is to work through these emotions, to work through these spaces. Okay, let me see. There's another comment. Let me read. What is called when we are chill? Oh, opposite of fight or flight. So when we're opposite our fight or flight, we're in more of a state of mind of a prefrontal cortex state of mind. So that's where we are, where it's all those higher human capabilities. So again, compassion, empathy, big picture thinking type ideas. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's the exact opposite of the limbic center, but very, very different than being in a triggered state. So where do we want to go from here? Let's talk about the neurosculpting process a little bit. The very beginning of the guided experience is very focused on predictable things, breath being one of them. So something as simple as taking 90 seconds to just breathe. And Eric, when we did the Awake experience together, he had a beautiful breath practice where he did a counting. So it was 4 counts in, holding for 3, and then releasing for 5. And I thought that was so beautiful. I love that. And so just a simple process of breathing can help tip these scales and get out of a limbic center. So all of the neurosculpting meditations begin with focus on breath, focusing on things that are predictable. I'll mention gravity is something that's very predictable. Gravity is very, when we feel supported by gravity. Our brain is a prediction machine, so it likes to know what's coming in the next moment. So when I guide you into this process and I'm focusing on your breathing, I'm focusing on gravity, your brain is in a space of, oh, okay, you mean I don't have to worry about anything? I'm set, I'm breathing, my heart is beating, everything's okay. And then your limbic center can quiet down. So from this space, all the neurosculpting meditations start with this idea. Because if you think about all of us being human, we're at different states of triggered and ease at any point of the day. So to go into a meditation, if I were to sit right now and say, ready, everybody, sit and think 0 thoughts for 20 minutes, we would all be in a different brain state. And quite possibly someone could be in a triggered state the entire time and be thinking, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to not be thinking thoughts. Okay, but now something's coming in. I'm thinking about my list. I'm thinking, oh, this is triggering me. And we could get amped up and after 20 minutes be like, that was horrible. What, you know? And so it's so beautiful to have my words guide you in this way so that you can tip these scales. And then we all get to start at this sweet spot. So after I do this down regulation, and again, your brain's a prediction machine, so we'll focus on breathing and gravity. Then we get to this sweet spot where I'll give your brain some brain candy. I may ask you to think about different parts of your brain that you haven't thought of. And that there's different things that I'll spark from the left hemisphere to the right hemisphere. On the left hemisphere, I may spell some things, and they might be odd. You think, why is she spelling that? Crossing the midline, going to the right hemisphere, I may ask you to think of some colors, some textures, some vibrations. So the neurosculpting process is all about breaking patterns and crossing this midline. Most of us have a space that we're comfortable in, whether very left brain or very right brain. So we don't want to stay there. We want to break our patterns. So I'll be crossing using my deliberate language. And then, different parts of the brain or different parts of the meditation will be sparking the prefrontal cortex, like I say, brain candy. Anytime we can introduce novelty in our lives is sparking the prefrontal cortex. So something as simple as your hands. Everybody put your hands together in a clasp like this. And then just flip it one finger. So your pointer finger is flipped. And do you feel how that it just feels a little odd? It's not threatening. It's just like, okay, that's different. When we do something like this, bing, 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 this is brain candy for our prefrontal cortex. So anytime we can introduce novelty into our lives, something really simple and easy to do is to do things with your non-dominant hand. That can be brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand, brushing your hair, drinking your coffee, stirring your tea. Anything with your non-dominant hand is sparking the prefrontal cortex. And like I mentioned, gray matter. So when we're more in this state of mind, we're growing more gray matter around the prefrontal cortex. So, so the neurosculpting process takes full advantage of novelty. So when we're in a novel space, we're more likely to create a strong neurological map. Now, when we're creating neurological maps, basically the big fancy word neuroplasticity just means that we have the ability to learn new things. So it's such a gift that we can build on neurological maps. You think about someone trying to learn how to play the piano. The first time they sit down to the piano, it might be cumbersome, it might be awkward, it might not sound beautiful, but after the 10th time playing the piano, 100th time playing the piano, maybe after a million times playing the piano, someone wouldn't even have to look at it. The keys would be, the whole process would be so ingrained on a neurological level that they wouldn't even have to watch. So this is how we build on the prediction machine brain aspect, and we build on these neurological maps. You can see how that would be so positive versus sitting at the piano every single time, having it be a completely new experience and not remembering things. Now, on the opposite side of the coin, if we have a limiting story that we tell ourselves, a fearful story that we tell ourselves, and then we entertain again and again and again, a lot of times some of these stories can start with I am. So let's just use something like I'm unworthy or I'm unlovable, something like that. If we have this story and we have something that reinforces it, and then we tell ourselves that story again, and we tell our stories again, and we create this neurological map based on a limiting story, you can see how that has a very different consequence versus being able to play the piano. It's still neuroplasticity, but used in two different ways. So if we know that we have these gifts, why not choose to entertain the positive aspects of it rather than limiting ones? And so the whole concept of neurosculpting is that we can work with these limiting ones and we can renegotiate it. We can re-navigate this mental space, this neurological space. So we don't necessarily change details, especially when you think about trauma, stress, things that have happened to us. We don't change the details of things that have happened to us, but we change the way we react to them. We change the way we respond to them. Something as simple as words. If you think about the words what if, there's so much fear incited by the words, what if that doesn't work out? What if I don't get this? What if? There's so much fear. But if you do a little flip of words and you say, what more is possible? It changes. It completely changes. If you say, what more is possible if I don't get this job? I might go a different direction. What more is possible if I'm not in fear of this situation? What more is, and do you see how there's that little subtle shift? So we can take the fear out of it and add in a more empowering stance. So this is the idea of the neurosculpting, is shifting the way that we think. And like I said at the very beginning, it's brain training. We're literally training our brain. The brain is a muscle, so we get to train it in this capacity. And we get to emotionally regulate. So many of these responses to the fight, flight, or freeze can be centered in emotions. They can be expressed as emotions. So the neurosculpting process can be an emotional regulation tool as we weave in and out. So back to the process. So I'll do the first part, down regulating the limbic center, and then I get to tell a story. So tonight we're going to do a story where we're going to think about a stress, something that is triggering us maybe, and we're going to do a release around that, and we're going to be inviting in something that might serve us better. So I'm going to be guiding you. There will be suggestions, but it's completely your meditation. So you get to work it however you want, but I will be offering some suggestions. So, and then we're going to leave a little bit of time after for some Q&A, but at this point, are there any questions? I know that's a ton and I could talk forever. An hour is so quick, but I definitely want to get into a good space and meditation here. So if anyone has any questions. No? Okay. Well, let's dive into a meditation then. Sound good? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if everyone wants to get comfortable, and comfort's key, so I invite you to, get a bunch of cushions to sit on or even lay down. If sometimes this time of night can be difficult if we're tired to not fall asleep. So sitting up might be recommended, but If you're more comfortable laying down, please feel free to lay down. And I have a little singing bowl here that I'm gonna use as well tonight. So you can just go ahead and get comfortable, and you can begin by gently closing your eyes and beginning to notice where your breath is at right here, right now. So that's no forcing, no changing. Your breath might be slow, it might be fast, but just beginning to notice the depth and the pace of your own breath. Maybe noticing as you breathe in and out that you can become aware of how the air feels as you draw it into your nose, down into your lungs, and back out again. Noticing as you breathe in and out that your belly and your lungs are in a consistent, effortless relationship of expanding and contracting, of rising and falling. And breathing in and out in this consistent and predictable way, you might become aware that your breath breathes itself in each and every moment, and that you can adjust it by maybe lengthening the inhale and also lengthening your exhale just as much as feels comfortable while your breath continues to breathe itself. And you might notice that gravity is holding you completely. So maybe you can deepen your breath and allow your bones to become heavy. Maybe allowing your muscles to loosen their grip as you relax even more. And you might bring your attention to the fact that you are safe enough to be doing this exercise right now because you are here doing it. You are nourished enough to be here in this moment. You are able-bodied, able-minded right here, right now. Your breath breathing itself, gravity holding you, all of your needs met. This continues in full support as you move your awareness anywhere you would like it to go. Perhaps you notice that behind your left knee. Or maybe you can find one unique piece of hair on the top of your head. Or maybe you bring your awareness to the underside of your tongue and notice that you can make yourself salivate with just one thought, and that this is the power of your directed awareness and the power of your thoughts as your breath breathes itself. And from this space of effortless breath, relaxation, and active awareness, you can take comfort knowing that anything that happens in this meditation is for you to adapt, or for you to embrace, or for you to even discard just as you see fit. You get to tell this story. And so first, if you would like to draw to mind the idea of something in your life that might be causing you stress, might be causing you anxiety, it might be a limiting story or an unempowering story that you're entertaining. This might be something that you would like to create a new story around. This stress could be a memory of an event with people and details. Maybe this is something in your life that's happening right now, or it could even be something from the past. And whatever this stress is, S-T-R-E-S-S, whatever it is that you would like to change or create a new story around, if you could sum up these ideas with a color or a texture or a vibration or maybe even 2 words, I wonder what you would choose to represent this stress. Maybe it looks red and abrasive, or maybe it's black and sticky. It could be gray and sharp or brown and sludgy. What does it look like to you? And if you could look right through your transparent body now, like it was made of glass, I wonder where you would discover that your body might hold any of these colors or textures or vibrations. Without necessarily having to feel them or sense them, I just wonder where you could imagine that they might want to live inside your body. Maybe it feels like they're everywhere, or maybe they're in just a few key areas. Some you might expect and some might surprise you. And now, what can you notice about the nature of your own body in those areas? Maybe there's a sensation. There might be a perception of density or lightness, or even temperature. Does it feel hot or cold? And now, if you could draw to mind out in front of you a container. So maybe that's a bucket, or it might be a trash can, or it could be an entire garbage truck. Maybe it's a hole or a fire pit, or it could even be a large bubble. But draw to mind a collection device that you can conjure up with your own imagination. You get to choose. And I wonder how you could use your effortless breath to help release some, or maybe even all, of these textures, these colors, these vibrations of your stress or your limiting story. Releasing them out of the spaces in your body and into this container. Letting go and releasing out, O-U-T, of the spaces in your body and into your collection device. And now what can you notice about the nature of this release? Maybe it's slow or fast. It could feel partial or complete. It might feel really chunky or really fluid. And if your mind notices areas of your body releasing or even responding to the permission to release this stress, you're invited to tap those areas with your non-dominant hand if that feels right for you. Identification, location, acknowledge and release this stress from my body. And when that container is just as full as you would like it to be, you can completely dispose of it. So maybe that means you send it to the garbage dump, or maybe you completely bury it, or maybe it becomes a lightning streak across the sky. It could even be sent to the middle of the universe and become stardust, or really you could just simply blow the whole thing up, however feels right to you. Completely dispose of this container. And now what can you notice about the spaces that you have made? Maybe you can bring your sacred breath into these newly created spaces. And I wonder what part of you might like to recognize the power of your thoughts to create these spaces, however small or large. And for this next step, if you could draw to mind some quality, some attribute that you might not have had access to while you were thinking of your stressful or maybe limiting story. Maybe this is something that you hope to embody. Maybe this is something like trust or courage or faith. Or maybe this is something like confidence and action. Or it could be something like ease or grace. And next, if you could pick in this moment the best color, the best vibration to represent this concept, I wonder what you would choose right now. Would it be soft like feathers or white like porcelain? Maybe it looks smooth or shiny. Or maybe does it look like water, or is it fluid? What does it look like to you? And if you could look right through your transparent body once again, like it was made of glass, and you could see everywhere and everything, I wonder where you might discover that a drop of this color or this vibration that already exists inside your body. Or perhaps where you would like to put a drop of this inside your body. Maybe, just maybe, you remember the spaces that you created just a moment ago and you put it there. And if you imagine a source of this that already exists in your body, or a source of this that you have just newly created inside your body, you're invited to tap those areas with your non-dominant hand if that feels right for you. Identification, location, and acknowledge this new quality, creating it in your own space. And next, I wonder how you could use the rhythm of your own breath to maybe amplify or brighten or expand any of these colors or textures or vibrations. So they begin to grow and glow and move to any other areas of your body that feel right for you. And I wonder what part of you might like to celebrate what you have done and what your body is like right now, however small or large that celebration might be. And what if you could choose to name this whole meditation experience? I wonder what you would choose to call it. And I wonder what that word or that name might sound like if it was whispered to you in your ear. Or what would it look like if you drew it in wet sand with your own finger? And you might remember that your breath is still breathing itself. And recognizing that gravity is still holding you, unconditionally supporting you. Maybe taking a few big, deep breaths in and deep breaths out. Bringing your awareness back to your body, back to your surroundings, maybe the sounds around you. Maybe inviting in some gentle movement into your fingers or your toes or your wrists or your ankles. And in a few more deep breaths, And when you feel complete, you can gently open your eyes and end your meditation. So how was that? Does anyone have any comments or questions or feel like sharing any of their experience?
I found it hard. Oh, let me mute. I
I
found
can
it
hear
hard
you.
to calm my mind enough to do all that visualization. And it's probably just because I had a really busy day and I didn't have much chance to kind of do much of a mindfulness practice before we got on. Would you usually recommend doing more mindfulness before you try to do all this visualization to kind of calm down, or should you be able to calm down during the practice?
So what I'll say to that is that every meditation for me is completely different. I have many experiences like you where it is more difficult, and many experiences where it just flows. So if you're recognizing that and you're guiding yourself through this process, I might recommend you spend way more time with your breath, way more time with gravity, way more time with down regulating that limbic response and quieting that before you get into the story part. And there are different days and different states where we're at. When I do the guided process, and like I mentioned earlier, everybody at different stages everybody at different stages neurologically, we can navigate our own process sometimes better to how we're feeling independently. Another thing that I would maybe recommend is something called shaking it out. Animals in the wild, when they get triggered, they will, after the threat dissipates, they will seek shelter, find a tree or a bush to go under, and their pelts will literally twitch. They just twitch, 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 twitch. This is how they bring themselves back up to homeostasis. As humans, we never do this. We just sit in it. Like I mentioned earlier, we get triggered and we sit. So something as simple as shaking before you sit down, if you sense that you might be a little more agitated, that you did have a crazy day and things are really spinning, something as simple as just shaking for 60 seconds, 90 seconds, and crazy shake. I'm not talking just a little shake, 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 like crazy, crazy, crazy shake. I think I mentioned at the Awake experience, I teach little kids and they get so shy when I give them this directive. But then when I say to them, if you were in the Olympics for shaking, show me what shaking would look like. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay. And then they go crazy. I'm like, no, that's a bronze. That might be a silver. Oh, we've got a gold over here. And everybody looks, and then they go nuts. And it's just crazy shaking. This can be such a simple tool to do. So at any time when you get triggered, excuse yourself, go to the bathroom if you're not in a place where it would be appropriate. But in the car, shaking. And before you sit down, that would be a fun experiment to do with your meditation practice, to practice some shaking beforehand and some not shaking and see if it makes a difference. So that's something you can do.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions or comments?
I was just curious, when people do this and they visualize where they're holding this very, like, the stress and their tension, do you find that, and I don't know if your practice goes into like chakra points at all, but do you find that people tend to feel like, you know what, where I'm envisioning this stress or this extra tension is at those points?
Yes, absolutely. And even colors as well. You know, blue can be an indication of throat chakra. Green can be the heart one. Yes, if you're in tune with those colors and those are showing up, that can definitely be places where you can feel blocks or you can feel restrictions or you can feel flow going through. we all have an innate wisdom. So I always want to invite people that in this visualization to really pay attention to what comes in, what colors are maybe threatening that you didn't think, like, oh, I didn't know blue was scary to me, or ones that are inviting. You're like, oh, pink, I've never been a pink person, but wow, that was so calming and soothing to me. So it's really interesting, the different things that can come up. Yeah, I would really pay attention to those. And you know what, that's why I don't give specifics saying, now think of the most amazing blue sky, because some people may not like blue. That may not be a comforting color to them. And in fact, they've done studies where people that survived 9/11 and were able to see the sky that day, the sky was this color of blue that a lot of people that went through that experience are triggered by this color of blue. So for me to say to someone, oh, think of a calming blue, and they're like, oh, no, that's not a safe color for me. That's why it's so beautiful that I give you I give suggestions, but then allow your visualizations to come up with whatever suits you best. So
that's really interesting too. I hadn't thought about the color thing either until you said to visualize your color. And as you were giving the different colors to think about, I was like, no, that's not right. That's not right. And it ended up being for me like this like deep blue, almost purple, which I always thought was like a really pretty color, but who knew that's what color? It's like, no, this is my tension. This is really interesting.
Oh, interesting. And it can be different every time too.
Okay.
But yeah, really pay attention to what comes in. That's interesting. But the chakras, definitely, those can, if you're in tune with that, most especially, and on an energetic level. I mean, there's a lot of energy work going in when you're doing this visualization, and especially in the release and the bringing in. So yeah, great, thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions? So I could do a quick little review, because I want to be able to empower you guys to be able to do this even without my guided words. So in a simple capacity, we just released something and we invited in something that can serve us better. So this is something that I talk about, creating more gray matter and becoming in a more prefrontal cortex state of mind. This is something we can be doing in real time when we know we're triggered, when we know we're in a limbic state of mind. That whole list that I went through of all the feelings that can be attached to these responses. We can take a moment, breathe. We can take a moment and shake. We can take a moment and say, oh, this is what I'm feeling, and here's where it is in my body, and I can give it a color, I can give it a texture, I can give it a vibration, I can create something out in front of me that I can dump it all in. I don't need to hold it. I mean, this can be something that we're doing, and we're around people, we're in a social environment, we're driving, this can be something that we can be doing in real time, like I said. So letting something go, ooh, that is heavy on my heart today. Okay, I don't need to carry that. I'll give it a color, I'll give it a texture, and I'll release. And then we can always be inviting in different energy. So for me, it's kind of this continual loop that I weave in and out of releasing and breathing in something more serving, releasing, breathing in something more empowering. And so I catch myself in these states of being triggered, and then I choose differently. It's like those words, instead of what if, what more is possible. Okay, I'll breathe through this and I'll invite something in. So you don't need to have, the perfect time, the perfect cushion, the perfect environment with the perfect temperature. You don't need to have any of that. This can be something that you can have as an active meditation, as a moving meditation that you can continue to go to time and time again. And like we talked about, neurological maps that we build on. I use the example of a piano, or entertaining a fearful story. We went through one story tonight, we created one neurological map, releasing something around a stress or a limiting story, inviting something new in. We've created one neurological map. You can continue to build on that by remembering this experience. And little access points into this meditation are the tapping. If you felt a release and you tapped, that's re-inviting in this story and creating a stronger neurological map on it. If you gave it a word or a label, you can also recall that word or that label, and you are remembering the experience of this. And this is how you can build and build and build, so that this is a more empowering story than diving into the fearful part or the limiting. Does that make sense? So yeah, so those are little tools that you can do to build on that. And then obviously if you have, a full 10, 15, 20 minutes, you can recreate this experience and strengthen these stories as well. So yeah, again, here, if anyone wants to dive a little bit deeper, the two books, Neurosculpting and New Beliefs, New Brain, are a great resource. I do a class every other Thursday at Mayu Sanctuary. It's always a different topic, but it's always neurosculpting. So the meditations are all guided, use similar language, but around different topics. This is one of the more generic ideas, because it gives you the process of picking something that you want to release and something you want to fill in with. Some of the topics we get really specific with there's classes on change, classes on fear, there's so many different fun ones. So I do that every other Thursday at Mayu, and Eric has invited me back for the Awake experience in March, so I'll be there again. So Eric, thank you so much. I'm just so grateful for everything you're doing for this community, and such light you're bringing to everybody. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to share. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Tamme, and thanks to everyone on the call this week. Appreciate you giving an hour of your time to come and practice together. And may the merit from all this hard work and learning and meditation, may it benefit us, and then in turn just go out to all beings to benefit all beings. So we'll dedicate the merit in that way. And Awake Experience, this is every Thursday night, 7 o'clock call, if you want to be on live, but this does get posted to the website at theawakeexperience.com. And we're actually a membership community now. We just started something last week. So now you can become a member, and it's free to watch all these recordings online, as it's called NamaStream. It's where all our teachings live on the internet now. And just go to the website and do it there. Join us for the next Awake Experience. We do one every month, and the next one's in February. And then the next Thursday is Danny Huggins, and Danny is the owner of Soulshine, and she is just a sweet, sweet, sweet person. And she's had some ups and downs in her life. She has dealt with some heavy depression and stuff that she's not afraid to share, because we all go through those things. And she shares very openly how our practice can really heal us. So I'm really looking forward to next week with Danny Huggins on this Thursday night call. So thanks to everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye.